In the last section, we talked about writing the equation of a line in slope-intercept form. In this section, we will talk about writing the equation of a line in first point-slope form, and then rewriting it into slope-intercept form. So we learned slope-intercept form last time is y equals mx plus b. A point-slope form is a different way of writing the equation of a line. It's y minus y1 equals to m times x minus x1, where x1 and y1 is a point on the line, m is a slope, and then x and y are variables, so they remain variables. What do we need? To write the equation in point-slope form, we need the slope, and we also need a point on the line. Let's take a look at an example. We want to write the equation of the line in slope-intercept form. Given the slope of negative 1/3 and passes through the point 3, -8, you do not need to simplify. But before we can do this, we're first going to start off with point-slope form and then convert into slope-intercept form. So start with point-slope form. All right, so we have y minus y1 equals to m times x minus x1 as the equation of a line in point-slope form. Now, here's what we know. We know that our slope m is equal to negative 1/3. We also know that the point on the line is a point 3 comma -8. So let's plug this in. Our x1, y1 is 3 and -8. So we have y minus y1, which is y minus -8, equals to our slope negative 1/3 times x minus x1, which is x minus 3. Okay, now what do we do with this? So if we have two negatives back to back, they become positive. So if we want the equation only in point-slope form, we are done. This is your equation in point-slope form, and we are done here. However, we want to rewrite this equation in slope-intercept form. So to do this, we need to get the y by itself. To get the y by itself, our first step is to distribute the negative 1/3. Okay, so we have y plus 8 equals to negative 1/3 times x. That is a negative 1/3 x. Now on the side, I'm going to multiply negative 1/3 times -3. And remember I told you guys that anytime you multiply a fraction with an integer, you put a 1 underneath. So now we have negative 1/3 times, this is like saying -3/1. So just put an imaginary 1 underneath. Then you have two choices. You can either multiply the numerators. Negative 1 times -3 is positive 3, because a negative times a negative is a positive. 3 times 1 is 3, and 3 divided by 3 is 1. That's one way to do it. Or you can cross-cancel the 3's. Then you have a negative times a negative is positive. 1 divided by 1 is 1. So either way, we get 1 as the answer. And then the opposite of adding 8 is subtracting 8. So we subtract 8 from each side. And this gives us y equals to -1/3x minus 7. And this is our equation in slope-intercept form. So on your quiz, if your directions are to first start with point slope, you're going to get points for the first part and for the second part. So you have to know both, but then these would be your two answers. Point slope, slope-intercept. Next example, find the equation of the line that passes through the point 10, -4 and has a slope of 5/3. Give your answer in point slope form. Now here it says do not need to simplify, which means we leave it in point slope and that's it. So point slope form is y minus y1 equals to m times x minus x1. So we're given everything we need. We know our point is x1, y1, that's 10, -4, and our slope m is 5/3. So we have y minus y1, that's y minus -4, equals to our slope, which is 5/3, times x minus x1, which is x minus 10. Remember the two negatives that turn into positives, so these become positives. And our final answer is going to be y plus 4 equals to 5/3 times x minus 10. Because it says you don't need to simplify and leave your answer in point slope form, we are done. Okay, the next one, it says find the equation for the line that passes through the points 5, -2 and -3, -5. Give your answer in point slope form. You do not need to simplify. So once again, we leave our answer in point slope form. But for that, we need first the slope. We always need the slope of a line, whether you're doing point slope or slope intercept. So my 2 points are x1, y1, 5, -2, and x2, y2, negative 3, negative 5. My slope is y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. And so my y2 is negative 5 minus y1, which is negative 2. x2 is negative 3 minus x1, which is 5. Okay, we got y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. So the two negatives back to back, they do turn into a positive. So this becomes negative 5 plus 2, which is going to be negative 3. And we have negative 3 minus 5, that's negative 8. If you divide these, negative divided by negative is positive. So our slope is positive 3/8. Okay, now here's where you have a choice. We need a point. And you can pick either one. You can pick either point. So we have two possible answers. If I pick the point 5, negative 2, then I'm going to have y minus y1, which is y minus negative 2, equals to my slope, which is 3 over 8, times x minus x1, which is 5. If I rewrite this, this gives me y plus 2 equals to 3 over 8 times x minus 5. That's one way to represent this line in point slope form. Another way to represent it is using the second point. So this time it'll be y minus negative 5, because the y value is negative 5, equals to 3 over 8 times x minus negative 3. Because I used this y value of negative 5, I have to use a corresponding x value of negative 3. Now the two negatives back to back become a positive, so I get y plus 5 equals to 3 over 8 times x minus negative 3, which is going to be x plus 3. And that is also a valid answer in point slope form. Now the cool thing is that even though they look different, if you were to distribute this and write it in points in slope intercept form, that would be the exact same equation. Now the next one says, start with point slope form and then rewrite as slope intercept form. Our points are negative 2, negative 5, and 1, 1. So our first step is to find the slope. So this point is x1, y1, and this is x2, y2. So our slope is going to be y2 minus y1 divided by x2 minus x1. So 1 minus negative 5 is going to become 1 plus 5, which is 6. 1 minus negative 2 is going to become 1 plus 2, which is 3. So 1 minus negative 5 is 6, 1 minus negative 2 is 3, and 6 divided by 3 is 2. That's your slope. Now we need to pick a point. It doesn't matter which one we pick, we're going to get the same exact answer. And I'm going to actually do it in two different ways. You don't have to. You can only pick one point, but I'm going to pick both points to show you we get the same answer. So if I pick my first point, I got y minus negative 1, that's y minus negative 5, equals to my slope of 2 times x minus negative 1, which is x minus negative 2. If I pick the second point, I have y minus y1, which is 1, equals to my slope, which is 2 times x minus x1, which is 1. So now we have these two negatives back to back that become positives, these become positives, and we can start. So we have y plus 5 equals to 2 times x plus 2. I then distribute the 2. So this gives me y plus 5 equals to 2x plus 4. And then I subtract 5 from each side. And this gives me y equals to 2x minus 1, which is my answer in slope intercept form. If I use the other equation, y minus y1, which is 1, equals to 2, which is my slope, times x minus x1, and write this in slope intercept form, I distribute the 2. So this gives me y minus 1 equals to 2x minus 2. And then I add 1 to both sides because my objective is to get the y by itself. And if I add 1 to each side, I end up with y equals to 2x minus 1. All right, last one. We first need a slope. So this is my x1, y1, my x2, y2. So my slope is y2 minus y1, that's negative 4 minus 3, over x2 minus x1, which is 1 minus negative 3. So this is going to give me negative 7. The two negatives back to back, they do become a positive. So we have 1 plus 3, and that's going to give me a 4. So this is my slope. Now, I'm not going to use both points like I did. I'm only going to pick one point. So the point I choose is going to be the point 3, -3. If I had picked 1, -4, I'd get the same thing, but I'm going to go with 3, -3, or -3, 3. So my equation is going to be y minus y1, which is 3, equals to my slope, which is -7/4, times x minus x1, which is x minus -3. And if I simplify that, the two negatives back to back become a positive. So this now becomes y minus 3 equals to -7/4 times x plus 3. Okay, now we need to convert this into slope-intercept form. So I'm going to start with, again, y minus 3 equals to -7/4 times x plus 3. And I have to distribute that -7/4. So I distribute, and when I distribute, I multiply that to both of these terms, because x is not a number. So we have y minus 3 equals to -7/4x. Remember when you multiply a fraction times an integer, we put a 1 underneath? So now I have -7 times 3, that's a -21, and then I have 4 times 1, which is 4. Then finally, I need to get the y by itself. So to get the y by itself, I have to add 3 to the left, and I add 3 to the right. But when I add 3 to the right, because I have a fraction, I'm going to write this as 3/1. So now I get the y by itself. On the right side, I have a -7/4 x. Now this part, the adding, I'm going to put that on the side. I have -21/4 plus 3/1. Remember that whenever we add and subtract fractions, we need to have a common denominator. So what I'm going to do is, to get that common denominator, I'm going to multiply that second fraction by 4, because the first fraction has a denominator of 4. So then let's take a look at what I get. I get -21/4 plus 12/4. And -21 plus 12. So when we add fractions, we just add the numerators. This is going to give me a -9/4 as the answer. So again, this 3/1, if you multiply that by 4, it gets converted into 12/4, which is the same thing as 3/1. And then -21 plus 12, that's going to be -9/4. So this whole thing becomes a -9/4. And that's my answer in slope-intercept form. This is my answer in point-slope form.